Welcome back to the channel, guys. I am the Drunken Goth, and today we are working on the suspension bushes. Basically getting these old suspension bushes out of the wishbones, out of the drop links, stuff like that. Then getting them everything cleaned up, and then we'll slowly start putting the new bushes back in. So yeah, without further ado, let's row straight in. So, wishbones. For a start off, we are going to start with the inner bushes and the lower wishbone. We are going to have to do something a little bit different with these outers. We'll probably go back to the old-fashioned method, which you shall see later on in the video. But for a start off, with these bushes, what we're going to do is we've got a sleeve kit. Basically this is going to go onto here like this, and we're going to use a socket to push these out. So while we are rowing in getting that first bush out, it is definitely worth mentioning that one of the things I've not quite shown you in this video is that a lot of the time, once these bushes have been pressed in, people tack weld them around the edge. Now, frustratingly with this one, they put about 4 or 5 tack welds in, which is why I completely forgot to video it, because I just spend quite a lot of time just grinding through those welds that just sort of pin the bush in place. But obviously, whilst you're doing this, if you grind those welds off first, it obviously makes it a hell of a lot easier getting those bushes out. So just be aware, again, if this is something you're doing yourself, make sure there's the tack welds are ground off. And there we go. So not really much explanation needed here. Basically we flip the wishbone over and repeat the entire process on the other side. Now this works for the inner bushes on the lower wishbones, but as you can see with that wishbone just to the left, the outer bushes, there isn't really much room to get this entire setup involved. There isn't enough room for the sleeve and the nut on the threaded bar to use this method. So for the outers we will have to go back to a very old-fashioned method, which, although it's old-fashioned, although it looks very much like a butcher's way of doing it, is very effective, and it is the way I've always been taught to do it when I've worked at Ferrari specialists in the past. So we know it works, but it doesn't look great. There we go. So as you can see, those bushes are out. So for a little bit of an explanation of what exactly is going on here. Now obviously once we've ground off the spot welds around the edge of the bush, we then move on to the blowtorch. Now the idea behind this is that the bushes are in two pieces. You have an outer sleeve which sits in the wishbone, and you have the inner piece which is separated by rubber with an inner sleeve which sits against the bolt through the chassis, through the yokes in the chassis. So what we're doing here is basically burning the rubber away. We're going to melt that rubber out. Now what happens is, once that rubber's gone, you've got a good gap between the inner sleeve and the outer sleeve. That will then allow us to get a lot of movement on the inner. What we can do is we can snap the end washer off on that bush, and the inner piece will then drop away from the outer piece. Now the other thing is, because we're applying quite a lot of heat, and as you can see we're virtually setting these bushes on fire to burn away all that rubber, the other result of that is that everything expands slightly. So I have found in the past that when you go through these methods, what can usually happen is that the remaining outer sleeve that's actually pressed into the wishbone will actually drop out quite nicely, which is why I've got, as you can see, a selection of hammers just down to my right there. And that is literally so that we can give it a little bit of a tap. If it looks like it's loose enough, a little bit of a tap, and we can get that outer sleeve out as well. But for the most part they are quite well stuck in there. To me, a lot of the time you don't really need the spot welds that a lot of people put on, because of how snug they are in the wishbone. But with everything expanding that little bit, obviously they can just come out with a little bit of a tap, which does make the whole process easier. But once we've done this, we are still left with that outer sleeve remaining inside the wishbone. So I will give a little bit of an explanation a bit further on of exactly how we're going to deal with that last piece. But this, of course, is just getting that inner piece out of the way, giving us a bit more room to work, because essentially what we'll be doing next is getting a hacksaw involved, threading the blade through the bush, cutting a section of the bush out, chiseling it out, so that we can reduce that diameter. Once that diameter has been reduced, you find that a little bit of persuasion, obviously with a hammer, that the inner sleeve, or the outer sleeve, sorry, that's in the wishbone will come out nicely. And once we've done that, we can get them cleaned up and ready to send away to be powder coated, so that they will all look as good as new. So the idea is we cut a slot with a hacksaw. Basically take the blade off, put the blade through the bush, put it back onto the saw and saw out a section of the bush. That then chisels out nicely, and we are able then to reduce the diameter of the bush, and that should allow it to be tapped out quite nicely. Next, drop links. Obviously these bushes just push straight out, so very easy to replace those. But these ones are a press fit, so again we're going to use a very similar method, using the sleeve kit, and get these pushed out. So as you can see, we are back to the easy method to get these bushes out of the drop links. Now some of the drop links on 308s do have the pressed in bushes on both ends. Luckily on this one we have the sort of push in by hand on one end and just the press fit on the other one. but these are quite easy. They're not held in as tightly as they are on the wishbones, so we can get these out relatively quickly and easily and start getting ready to get these drop links cleaned up. And they do clean up quite well, so these will look nice. There we go, one more bush out, one drop link, ready for cleaning up for new bushes. So once those bushes are out, basically we take the drop links, give them a good cleaning on the wire wheel, get any crap off there, give them a sort of good wire wheeling down, get them down to bare metal, and then we get a good coat of high temperature, very durable silver paint, so that we can get them looking brand new. So as you can see on the bench there in front of me, we have got those drop links all nicely cleaned up. The new bushes, the hand fitted ones, are in on one end, and we are now about to start putting the press fit bushes, the new press fit bushes, back in the other side of those. Now, method is pretty simple. Basically we're going to use the same method we used for taking the old bushes out to push the new bushes in. So as you can see, threaded bar, sleeve kit in play again, some washers, that new bush, and as I said before, they're not that tight as the wishbones are, so these are quite easy to do, so it won't really take too much. Obviously on the bench, ratchet, spanner, threaded bar, couple of nuts and some washers, and we can quite easily just maneuver those new bushes into the drop links, get them all done, and that will complete those drop links for us. So we're now at a point where we've got a lot of those bushes out. We've sent the wishbones away for powder coating, so they'll be back in a few days, but there's obviously nothing stopping us with the drop links. They're all finished now, and we can start moving on to the next bit. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like on it, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.